as I as I told you in the last lecture that that day we covered the lecture in a very brief way. That was the very brief summary of the whole drama, The Duchess of Malfi. Today we are going to do it in more in little bit more detail. Like we are going to cover about the author, about the drama, about plot, step by step plot like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and the genre. So we are going to cover everything about this drama in this lecture. So it can be a little bit lengthy, so we'll try to cover it in today's lecture. But if we run out of time, so we'll continue it in our next lecture, right?
Okay.
So it is the Duchess of Malfi about the author. Like the author John Webster is the author of Duchess of Malfi. He lived from 1578 to 1632, born and died in London, United Kingdom. Was an English Jacobean dramatist, best known for his tragedies. And the tragedies are the dramas which he wrote, The White Devil and The Duchess of Malfi, which are often seen as masterpieces of the early 17th century English stage. He's contemporary of Shakespeare. Okay, this is about the author who has written this drama. And anything, if you don't understand or any question comes in your mind regarding whatever I'm telling you, so you can ask that question.
Okay.
About the drama. The Duchess of Malfi, it is a five-act tragedy by English dramatist John Webster. Right, he is an English dramatist, John Webster, performed in 1613, 1614, and published in 1623. Right, this was written in 1613 and 14, but it wasn't published at the time. It was published 10 years later in 1623, and it is Jacobean era drama. Now, what is Jacobean era? This is actually an era in English literature, so which we are going to discuss in our today's lecture, like what is Jacobean era. Then the play begins as a love story when the Duchess marries beneath her class, and ends as a nightmarish tragedy as her two brothers undertake their revenge, destroying themselves in the process. Jacobean drama continued the trend of stage violence. Here we can see the violence in the drama, horror and violence and horror set by Elizabethan tragedy, right? Because this period, Jacobean era, it was followed by the Elizabethan tragedy. So that's why we are discussing about Elizabethan tragedy. But I'm going to tell you what is Elizabethan era, what is Jacobean era. This thing I'm going to tell you in our today's lecture. So Jacobean drama continued the trend of stage violence and horror set by Elizabethan tragedy under the influence of Seneca. And what is Seneca? I'm going to tell you. The complexity of some of the play's characters, particularly Bussola and the Duchess, and Webster's poetic language have led many critics to consider the Duchess of Malfi among the greatest tragedies of English Renaissance drama. Right? Uh, like here it is being said that there are like the character of Bussola and the Duchess, like when we are going to read the drama, so you will see that their characters are somehow confusing, so at one time they are behaving in one way, and at another place at another time, so they are behaving in another way. How we are going to see, but they have a kind of complex, the role which has been given here, and the poetic form of the drama, because the drama has been written in a poetic form. So these all things make it, the people say that these all things make it the greatest tragedies of English Renaissance drama. Webster's The Duchess of Malfi is often regarded as the last great tragedy of the Elizabethan and Jacobean eras, second only to William Shakespeare's. There's no evidence that Webster had read or seen the play of Spanish dramatist Lope de Vega had written about the Duchess. So there was also another Spanish writer who had written about a Duchess. So it is also, sometimes considered that maybe he just took the story, the idea from that writer, but it is not known that whether he took it from there or, he had some other source of this drama. So Webster's style is reliant on dense symbolic imagery. This we are going to see in the drama. The Duchess, by far the strongest character in the play, is a passionate noblewoman who rejects her brother's demands for the sake of love. Unbroken by cruel treatment, she proclaims before her death, "I am Duchess of Malfi still." Okay. Now there was a word Seneca, which I told you. There was a word Seneca which we used here. So what is Seneca? Senecan tragedy. It's what is it? It is body of nine closet dramas. It's call it group of number of nine dramas. Plays intended to be read rather than performed, written in blank verse by the Roman Stoic philosopher Seneca. So there was Roman Stoic philosopher Seneca who wrote, nine dramas, because these tragedies they follow, his way of that. Stoic philosopher, Roman philosopher. So that is why, it is written here that this tragedy has been written under the influence of Seneca. Seneca is nine closet dramas that were written by Roman Stoic philosopher. And there is more about Seneca, like, you know, Roman Stoic philosopher Seneca in the first century AD, rediscovered by Italian humanists in the mid 16th century. They became the models for the revival of tragedy on the Renaissance stage. Now, this was written like, these types of dramas were written by Roman Stoic philosopher in the first century, but these were revived during the Renaissance stage. The two great but very different dramatic traditions of the age are French neoclassical tragedies and Elizabethan tragedies. So Elizabethan and Jacobean tragedies have got much influence from those tragedies of Seneca. Now, what is tragedy? This is just a simple definition of the word tragedy, like an event causing great suffering, destruction, and distress, such as serious accident, crime, or natural catastrophe. This is just the literal meaning, just the meaning of the word. But according to, as we use in dramas, like here we are using like tragic drama. So what does it mean? It means a play dealing with tragic events and having an unhappy ending, especially one concerning the downfall of the main character. That is known as a tragedy. So here we are calling it this the Duchess of Malfi. We are calling it revenge tragedy. Why is it revenge tragedy? Because we saw like and still we are going to see there when we were discussing about the Duchess, she had been said by her brothers like you don't have to marry, but she married against her brother's wishes. So then her brothers they both decided to take the revenge from their sister. So that is why we are calling it revenge tragedy. And there are other, we'll see that how it is a revenge tragedy, and there are other examples as well of to you know say or to justify that this is a revenge tragedy. As we in the character of Basolo, we also see that he also wanted to take the revenge from the Ferdinand and Cardinal. Okay, so revenge tragedy drama in which the dominant motive is revenge for a real or imagined injury. It was a favorite form of English tragedy in the Elizabethan and Jacobean eras and found its highest expression in William Shakespeare's Hamlet. So its highest form can be seen in the Shakespeare's drama Hamlet. The revenge drama derived originally from the Roman tragedies of Seneca, which was established on the English stage by Thomas Cade with the Spanish tragedy. Revenge tragedies are dramatic works in which one character seeks revenge upon another character for an evil doing. Most often associated with the Jacobean era, these revenge tragedies were actually a revival from Roman times. Excellent examples of revenge tragedies include William Shakespeare's Hamlet and John Webster's The Duchess of Malfi. Now, Jacobean era. What is Jacobean era? Like Jacobean dramas or Jacobean period, Jacobean era, that is a time period in English literature, like the time and that the this type which we are the literature which we are discussing. This literature was written at the time, so that is a Jacobean drama, and the body of plays. Jacobean drama, the body of plays written and performed during the reign of James the First of England, right? This was the king who ruled, at that time in England, and his period, the whatever the literature which was written in his period, the time period, which is from 1603 to 1625, that time period is known as Jacobean era, right? So, is known for its exploration of tragedy in a manner that is distinct from the Elizabethan era. Jacobean dramas also reflect the societal and political sides of society as well. Now, Jacobean drama, that is the drama of the age of, we are calling it Jacobean era because it was written in, yes, Rixa, why we are calling it
1603 to 1625.
yes, because it was written during the reign of James the First, 1603 to 1625. So whatever the literature that was written during that period, that will be known as Jacobean era, Jacobean literature. Okay, so Jacobean drama was a dark form of drama of Shakespeare and his contemporaries. The Elizabethan age was the golden age of English drama. But with the turn of the century, okay, this is something extra. You don't need to do this. Okay. Now, there are two things which we are, discussing again, like Jacobean era and the Elizabethan era. What is the difference between them, like Jacobean and Elizabethan? So this is Elizabethan era coincides with the reign of Queen Elizabeth, the first queen, the Queen Elizabeth who ruled in England. So the literature which was written during her time, like it was from 1558 to 1603. The literature which was written in from 1558 to 1603, that was the time period of Queen Elizabeth. Though that literature, that era is known as Elizabethan era, and then the Jacobean era is from 1603 to 1625. Then there are the main characters. So today we are going to discuss, in detail the characters of the drama here. The Duchess. She is the protagonist, sister of Ferdinand and the Cardinal. At the beginning, she is a widow whose brothers take every precaution to keep her away from marriage. Though later she secretly marries Antonio, and for this her brothers arrange to have her strangled. She is described as having a sweet countenance and a noble virtue, unlike her brothers. Now there's a word countenance. it is something related to your facial expressions or something related to your face. So she's described as having a sweet countenance and noble virtue, unlike her brothers. She's also witty and clever, helping her keep up with her brothers' banter. Banter, you can call it a kind of making fun of someone, and so that is banter because they laughed at her. Yes, do you want to say,
Hmm?
something?
Oh no.
Okay, so banter is something, when you mock at at someone, so that will be a kind of banter. And has so she's also witty, clever, helping her keep with her brother's banter, and has a tenderness and warmth which they lack. She has three children, two sons and a daughter by Antonio. And in the drama, you will see that there is an inconsistency surrounding earlier children by her deceased husband. Like, there is at some places, or at some, at one place, it is, you'll see that there is something about her children from her first husband, but some of the writers said that this was by mistake by the Webster. All right, now this is based on the. Okay, so this drama, it was taken by James Webster, based on a real duchess, and that real duchess name was Giovanna di Aragona. So that was the real duchess who lived there at that time. So this story was based on that duchess' lives, right? And she was the Duchess of Amalfi. Then there is Antonio Bologna. Antonio returned from France. Like with the very beginning of the drama, we see the discussion between Antonio and his friend Delio. So there they were discussing something about France, the courts of the France, and they were comparing them with the Italian courts. So this is how it is written here. Antonio returned from France, full of scorn for the Italian courtiers whom he sees as more corrupt than the French. Antonio is the steward of the Duchess of Malfi's palace. His honesty and good judgment of character are traits well known to the other characters. He accepts the Duchess' proposal of marriage because of disposition rather than her beauty. So the main reason of marrying the Duchess wasn't her beauty, but it was her disposition. Her about because of her character. He saw her character. So because of her character, and then the quality of her character. Her marrying beneath her status is a problem. However, and the marriage has to remain a secret as Antonio shares neither her title nor her money. Then there's Delio, a courtier who tries to woo Julia, right? He tries to woo Julia, who I told you at the time, to persuade someone, to seek favor of someone. So he tries to woo Julia. His purpose is to be the sounding board for his friend Antonio, and he was a very good friend of Antonio because he asked so many pertinent questions. He serves as a source of important information to the audience. In the drama, we will see that there will be many questions asked by Delio. So this he is a kind of source to give more information about other characters or other things, or the background of the drama, and he is privy to the secrets of Antonio's marriage and children. So he knew everything about the marriage of Antonio and his children, um, but he didn't, because he was his privy. He didn't tell anyone about Antonio's secrets. Then there's Daniel D. Bussola, or you can pronounce it Bussola, a former servant of the cardinal, now returned from a sentence in the galleys for murder. So he was here, the role which we see, he acts as former servant of the cardinal, not the serving servant, a former servant of the cardinal, now returns from a sentence in the galleys for murder. Galleys is a place, in in older days, it is a term which was used. There was a place, a kind of kitchen in the ships. So this word is used for that kind of place, a kind of kitchen in the ships. So a former servant of the cardinal now returned from a sentence. So he has completed his sentence in the galleys for murder. He was accused of murder, so he was punished for that, and he was completing his sentence. Publicly rejected by his previous employer, the cardinal, he is sent by Ferdinand to spy on the Duchess as her provisor of horse. So publicly, cardinal, nobody knew, like that is still he is serving cardinal of Ferdinand. So publicly it wasn't known because he was their former servant. Now he wasn't serving them publicly, but in reality they again, we can say they again hired him. And Ferdinand gave him the task to spy on the Duchess as her provider of horse. He was taking care of the horse of the Duchess. So Ferdinand hopes to keep her away from marriage. Vasola is involved in the murder of the Duchess, her children, Crayola, Antonio, the Cardinal, Ferdinand, and a servant. Witnessing the nobility of the Duchess and Antonio facing their dates, he finally feels guilty and seeks to avenge them. When he kills them, at the in the last lecture, I told you, like when Vasola kills the Duchess, so then he repented on that thing and he was feeling guilty, and then he wanted to take the revenge of Duchess from her brothers. So this is how that he was feeling guilty and he seeks to avenge them. He seeks the revenge of Duchess and Antonio from her brothers. This change of heart makes him the play's most complex character. So we'll see that he's a complex character, confusing character. Um, like sometimes he's acting, or we say his role as, we see his role as a villain, and on the other hand, as here we are discussing, like he was feeling guilty and he wanted to take revenge. So it means he was showing some kind of sympathy, and he was um, behaving like a kind of positive person. A malcontent and cynic, he makes numerous critical comments on the nature of Renaissance society, right? Here again, I have written the historical, whatever the historical, he's based on the historical Daniel de Buzola, about whom little is known. This is how this is what, as I told you about the Duchess, like the story of the Duchess has been taken from a real Duchess of Amalfi. So there was something, a kind, real people existed there. So there, in the same way there was Duchess, so in the same way there was a kind of person with the name of Daniel de Buzola. So this character, Daniel de Buzola, has been taken from the real character. But this is not, a kind of, we cannot say that this is a proven thing, that he was, he really existed there, or he had such kind of character. Okay. Then there is third character, the Cardinal. We cover the Duchess, Antonio, then there's Dalio, then there's Vasola, and then there's third character, Cardinal. But before that, here I've written the word which is repeating again and again, Renaissance, right? This way you learn in this is found in literature as well as in history. If you read the history, so there you'll find this word a lot. What is Renaissance? This was a fervent period of European cultural, artistic, political, and economic rebirth. The word Renaissance, in simple words, you can call it rebirth, the rebirth of European culture, art, and a political, their politics and their economy. Before that, there was a time period which was known as the Dark Ages for the Europeans. So this is Renaissance is something rebirth of these all things, right? So that you may not get, confused about the word. Then there's Cardinal, the brother to the Duchess, and Ferdinand, a corrupt, icy. Icy, you can call it unfriendly, hostile person. A corrupt, icy cardinal of the Roman Catholic Church. He served in the church, right? He served in the Roman Catholic Church, who keeps a mistress. He had a mistress with the name of Julia. I told you in the last lecture. So he has arranged a spy, Sola, to spy upon his sister. All this on the quiet, however, leaving others ignorant of this plotting. Like whatever he did, that was a kind of secret thing, and nobody else knew about whatever he planned. Like nobody knew that he had tasked our Ferdinand and these both brothers had tasked the Basola to spy on their sister. Of remorse, love, loyalty, or even greed, he knows nothing. In this way, the words which we see, so this was about his character, he possesses these things in his character. But overall he's the character, if we analyze his character, so a kind of cruel person, as I told you in the last lecture, not positive, but kind of negative person. Okay. So, of remorse, love, loyalty, and even greed, he knows nothing, and his reasons for hating his sister are a mystery. So, it is said that throughout the drama, we are unable to find that what are the reasons of, hating his sister. Then there's again, I've written the historical. I mean, this is not important, but this is just for your information. Like he had, name from a real character that was Luigi di Aragona, right? Luigi di Aragona. Okay. Then there's Ferdinand, the Duke of Calabria, and twin brother of the Duchess. Ferdinand was the Duke of Calabria, like his Duchess first brother was he served in Catholic Church, and this Ferdinand, he was the Duke of Calabria, and he was the twin brother of Duchess. Unlike his rational brother, the Cardinal, Ferdinand has rages and violent outbursts disproportionate to perceived disproportionate to the perceived offense. Okay, we are going to continue it after this. So, Ferdinand has rages and violent outbursts disproportionate to the perceived offense. As a result of his regret for hiring Basola to kill the Duchess, he gradually loses his sanity. Okay. He believes he is a wolf and digs up graves, right? As I told you, he became mad after killing his sister. At the end, he became mad, and he was blaming Basola for killing his sister, and he was behaving like he was a wolf, right? And digging up graves. And this is the word, this is a kind of disease where you feel like you are a wolf, or you have characteristics of, you behave like a wolf, or you have characteristics of wolf. This is a disease which is lycanthropia. Lycanthropia is a disease where you behave like a wolf. Okay. Then there's another character. So at that day, I told you that we were discussing the main character, but there are other additional characters. That is Castroccio, an old lord. His name plays on the word castrated, suggesting importance, right? He's the conventional elderly man with a young, unfaithful wife, Julia. Like Julia, which we have discussed again and again, Julia was the wife of Castroccio, right? But she was the mistress of a cardinal, and yes, yes.
No, I was just saying cardinal.
Again, tell me again. Yes. Now,
No, you were just saying like she's the mistress of, and then I said cardinal.
yeah, right. Okay, right. So she was the wife of Castroccio. She was the mistress to Cardinal, and uh, there was another thing that she also loved Bussola, as I told you in the last lecture, right?
Oh yes.
That is how Bussola, said her to go to the Cardinal. So these all things we are going to see. So he is genial. This person, Castroccio, is a genial. Genial, you can call it friendly. He's genial and easygoing, attempting to stay on good terms with all. Then there's Roderigo. He's a courtier. Greselan, he's also a courtier. Silvio, he's also a courtier. Then there's Pascara, a marquis. Marquis is a person in he holds a position. You call it like lower than duke, a person who holds a position lower than duke. Here we are discussing duchess and duke, so that is also a person, but his position is lower than the duke. That is known as marquis. Then there is Crayola, the duchess waiting woman. uh, Waiting women are lady in waiting. This is a term, are such these terms are used for those people who are personal assistant of the royal family. In royal family, like there was a duchess, so she was a kind of personal assistant to her. That is why we use the term waiting woman or lady in waiting. So a personal assistant of a woman who belongs to a royal family. But it's not necessary. It's not necessary that this person or this waiting woman, she should also be from a royal family. She is from a lower class, but she is the assistant to a royal family woman. The Duchess, a waiting woman who is privy to our secrets, as Delio was privy to the secrets of Antonio. So she, the Carayola, she was privy to the secrets of Duchess. She knew everything. Like, okay, we are going to read from here. She witnesses the Duchess' wedding and delivers her children. She dies tragically by strangling following the murder of the Duchess and the youngest children. Her name plays on the Italian. Okay, this is something that her name has been taken from this word. So this is in the detail of her name. Okay, then there's Julia. Julia is Castruccio's wife and the cardinal's mistress. She dies at the cardinal's hands from a poisoned Bible. Right? Last time I told you a book. She was given a book by the cardinal, which she kissed, and she died there. So she dies at the cardinal's hands from a poisoned book, because cardinal knew that she has come for to know my secrets. Are She has come uh, to know, like to get me confessed about the murder. So he knew everything, so he uh, gave her that book, due to which he died. Then there is Malatesta, like Malatesta. You can separate this word in two words, like Mela, something something big, testa, you can call it, a kind of head. It is also written here, right? This is a kind of uh, the person who is not not a good person, a bad person, you can call it, is a hanger on at the cardinal's court. Hanger on, a person who served there, right? Hanger on is a person, uh, okay, I'm going to define it at the end. Like hanger on at the cardinal's court, the name means headache. Is the name of, this words mean, you can call it a kind of headache, referred to as the mere stick of sugar candy by the Duchess. So Duchess called it, like a mere stick of sugar candy. Is yet another interchangeable courtier serving sycophant court, right? Sycophant, now the word sycophant is a person, people who, praises someone, who praises their dukes or duchess in order to get their favor, and that praise is not something, from their heart. That is um, just to get the favor, just to get the personal, they want to get their personal benefits from them. That is the word which we use, sycophant. So hanger on, they are also person, are people who are, who are a kind of sycophants, right? Then there's doctor, sent for to diagnose Ferdinand's madness and his supposed lycanthropia. And there are also minor roles, including courtiers, servants, officers, a mistress, the duchess children, and executioners, etc. Now, this is synopsis. Synopsis, you can call the overall, call the overall brief or the overall summary of the whole. As I told you at that day, but that was little bit, lengthy, which I told you at that day, but this is very brief of the whole drama. Okay, so will you read this synopsis? Because I want to, okay, yes.
The play is set in the court of Malfi, Amalfi, Italy, from 1504 to 1510. The recently widowed duchess falls in love with Antonio, a lowly steward. Her brothers Ferdinand and the cardinal forbid her from remarrying, seeking to defend their inheritance and desperate to avoid a degrading association with a social inferior.
Yeah.
Suspicious of her, they hire Basola to spy on her. She
Mm,
elopes with Antonio and bears him 3 children secretly.
mm,
Basola eventually discovers that the duchess is pregnant, but
mm.
does not know who the father is.
Yes.
Ferdinand, shown by now to be a deprived lunatic,
Mm,
threatens and disowns the duchess. In an attempt to escape, she and Antonio concoct a story that Antonio has swindled her out of her fortune and must flee into exile.
yes.
The duchess takes Basola into her confidence, unaware that he is Ferdinand's spy,
Yes.
and arranges for him to deliver her jewelry